Brad Frager here is an old man, which is not something I would say normally, but it says so right here on his book, Lucky That Way, which is for sale at the Classic Gaming Expo booth, I believe, right?
Yeah, we have, there's a few of them up there. Oh, excuse me. I might talk pretty loud, I probably don't need this. But there's a few of them up there for $10 each.
So Brad's been around quite a while. He was there at the early days of Atari. He moved on to Activision, where he was the first credited producer, possibly the first person in the video games industry with the title producer. He shipped games including Ghostbusters on the Atari 2600, Pitfall 2 for the Atari 8-bit and Commodore 64. He went on to found Publishing International, where he shipped Ashido and Computer Solitaire. And he is going to share some stories from the early days of the computer gaming industry. So, Brad, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. I was hoping I wouldn't be speaking to an empty showroom. It's a pleasure. I'm going to be speaking about stories from the early days. It isn't quite in line with the Classic Game Echo because I really didn't get involved until we got into computer games when Atari crashed. But I hope you'll find the stories interesting. Can I do this? Does this work for you guys?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Jim?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm not. Or do you need this for this?
Nope.
Okay, then I'm going to.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm going to do without this thing. I like to wave my arms around.
Fly, Brad, fly.
Oh. So this is your name again? Mike. Mike is the guy that runs the stuff in here in the showroom. So he's the one that makes sure everything works.
I just push buttons.
He's the one that pushes buttons. So anyhow, so I'm going to be talking about the early days and try to give you an idea of a little bit about where I played a role in those early days. That's about all I can talk about. I hope you'll find it interesting. So I say, who the hell is Brad Frager? I think I've probably produced more video games than anybody else who isn't known. That's for sure. I'm going to be talking about Computer Space and Andy Capp's Tavern to start with. If those of you are familiar with Computer Space and Andy Capp's Tavern. What really happened at Atari, I'm going to do real quick. I think I'm in the best position to know what really happened at Atari. At least I have the opinion that I do. Biggest Easter egg in computer games history. Anybody has heard that story?
No.
Oh, okay. The biggest Easter egg. The producer credit on the package. Finally, I'll get there. The unbelievable story of Shanghai. I don't know how many of you know the true story of Shanghai, which is absolutely, truly unbelievable. The birth of computer card solitaire, and then also the inside story of Tetris. I'm going to give you all of that here this morning. And first of all, let's start with Computer Space and Andy Capp's Tavern. In 1972, when Pong hit Andy Capp's Tavern, at the same time Computer Space was out in a lot of locations, and I was working for Knight & Associates at that time. A good friend of mine named Rod Guyman was the president of Knight & Associates. I just lost my job, the job I had prior to that. He felt sorry for me, and he said, I need somebody to go around and pick up quarters out of our machines. And I said, well, I'd be more than happy to do that. I'm not doing anything else right now. So I went to work for them. And the story that I read in Wikipedia is really completely wrong. And I think the story in Wikipedia is set up in order to save face for Nutting, Bill Nutting, and to also let Nolan Bushnell believe that he had the first really successful computer game in Pong. The truth is, the Computer Space was extremely successful. I can't tell you how many times I went around to pick up quarters and the machines wouldn't work because the quarters had jammed them. And that's the story from Pong, for those of you that know that that's how they discovered it was going to be successful. So the same thing was absolutely true for Computer Space. So why didn't Computer Space take off? Well, I think, and there's no way to know this for sure, of course, because you never know when something's going to be successful or not be successful. But I think it didn't take off because Bill Nutting could care less whether it took off. When I went to work for Knight & Associates, the first thing Rod did was take me into the warehouse. The warehouse over here on the side had a place where they were making all of the Computer Space stuff. And in the middle of the warehouse, taking up most of the warehouse, was the plane that Bill Nutting was building so he could fly missionary in Africa. And that happened long before Pong got started. So the story out of Wikipedia says that he didn't decide to go to Africa until after Computer Space failed, and that's I can tell you from personal experience that's absolutely not true. You know, Computer Space probably would have made it big if Bill Nunning had cared anything about it at all. They didn't seem to. And of course, I was putting quarters in Pong in Handicap Tavern. I lived in Sunnyvale, California at the time. There's a lot of luck that comes with anything that happens in your life, and the most lucky thing that ever happened to me in regard to computer games was living in Sunnyvale, California. So that worked out real well. So I got to play Pong at Handicap's Tavern and go around and collect quarters out of computer space. So that was kind of my beginning. I say it was my beginning, but that isn't true. My beginning within my relationship goes back a lot further than that. My aunt, named Joan Sjogren, created the first computer art in the world back in 1965. Again, Wikipedia doesn't get this right. Wikipedia is really good for, I tell all my students, the best in the world for current information. But if you don't have source after source after source, they could care less about you and they won't publish anything about you. So if you take a look, after you see what I've done here, then take a look at my Wikipedia, you'll say, my God, it's two different people. It's just because they will not allow the person in there or a relative of the person to put anything into Wikipedia. It has to be a stranger that puts stuff up into Wikipedia. But she was the first one to do the computer art, 3 years before anybody else. And her art was so well received that there was actually a showing at San Jose State University. And IBM chose one of her art pictures to put on the side of one of their buildings. Then later on, what did she do? Her and my brother, who was a great artist, did the very first click art game for the Macintosh. So my kind of connections, because of living in that Silicon Valley area at that time, was really started quite a bit even before this. So I just share that with you too. But again, Wikipedia, when I read Wikipedia on this, they said that EA had the first video game producers, and that's not true. What happened when I went to Atari, I was at Atari. I was the director of training development for Atari Corporation, and they got started, the first one. Then I went to Activision as director of training development. And when I went there, they said they were looking for a video game producer, and they had this long list of characteristics. Now, we couldn't go to MIT, we couldn't go to CIT, we couldn't go to nobody. There'd never been one before, right? So there was no school that taught you how to be a video game producer. But we had this long list of personal characteristics, and I was handed the list and said, as a member of HR, it's your job to find this person. So I looked at the list and didn't think much about it, read it a few times, and then one day I'm flying back from LA after a meeting, and I'm looking at the list again, and I said, damn, this guy looks familiar. And then I realized, it was me. They were described me to a T. So I went into my boss, Ken Coleman. I don't know if you know that name, but it should be known like Tom Lopez. I mean, phenomenal in the computer games industry. I went into Ken Coleman, who at that time was the VP of Personnel and went on to become the PV of Product Development. And I said to Ken, I think I found your video game producer. He said, you did? And I said, yeah. He said, do I know him? And I said, yes. And he said, who is he? And I said, me. And he went, I handed him the list. He looked at it and he said, I'll get back to you tomorrow. The next day he said, Tom Lopez agrees. Congratulations, you're the first video game producer. So that's how that happened. That's how that happened at that time. And as far as I know, and I'm sure this is true, EA did not have them yet. EA copied Activision. And that's when, see what happened initially, we were tech companies. And tech don't have producers, they have project managers, see? And so all of us they were all project managers, that's what they were. And what we decided at Activision was we weren't a tech company, we were an entertainment company. And as an entertainment company, we needed producers, not project managers. That was the decision that was made. And once Activision made that decision, then the industry followed. Because it was true. The industry was an entertainment industry. Now this is a list. I think I did Hero too, didn't I, Jim? I think I did Hero and I left it off of the list here. What's that?
It came from New Jersey.
Yeah, I know it did, yeah. At Activision, I went on to become the director of entertainment software, and I produced all of the entertainment product the last couple of years that I was at Activision. So that includes both the East Coast and the West Coast product. And I think I left Hero off of the game. And Hero was a 2600 game, so I'm really kind of unhappy that I left it off. But the Pitfall 2, Ghostbusters, Master of the Lamps, great little game. Transformers. You know, whenever Transformers is so famous, I think, I did the video game. It's so exciting. That feels so good to me. And also, you know, it feels good to be walking through here and seeing Ghostbusters on a gambling machine. American Cross Country Road Race was really great. That was from the East Coast. And Fast Tracks, Fireworks Construction Set, the two hackers from Steve Cartwright. Aliens, great game. Murder on the Mississippi, I don't know how many know that, but it's first walk around adventure mystery. First walk around mystery was Murder on the Mississippi, done by a guy named Adam Bellin. It was a great little game. Shanghai on the map, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Portal was the first computer novel, first computer novel, and the first video game to be converted to a book. Portal was a video game first, and then the publishers asked to publish it as a book. So that was kind of going backwards. That was Portal. Designer Pencil, Gary Kitchen's game maker, and then the libraries. That's East Coast. The Music Studio was the very first music program on the computer, very first one, and a terrific little program. And then Paintworks, also good. So those were my Activision ones. Went on to my own company. This was my company, and we did the Solitaire Deluxe, the Dragon, Heaven and Earth, Solitaire for Windows, Ashido, Hometown USA, Pharaoh's Revenge, and Solitaire Royale. And the Hometown USA won the Software Publishers Association Award. I don't know, I've been out of the business, you know, for over a decade. I don't know if the Software Publishers Association is still the same as it was, but at the time, these awards were the Academy Awards for the industry. Software Publishers Association was everybody from a little tight guy like me all the way to Microsoft. And of course, Solitaire Royale was the first commercial version of the computer solitaire ever published. I'll talk a little bit more about that too. Then I went back and I worked for Maxis for Accolade and Eclipse Entertainment for Accolade. We did Jack Nicklaus 4 and 5. And I'll tell you, Jack Nicklaus 5 was the most advanced 3D figure at the time, period. No 3D figure in any game matched the golfers that we had in that. Most advanced golf course construction set, the most playable courses, the most realistic physics by far, the best realistic physics in golf, and the third best marketing. Really hard to go up against Microsoft and Tiger Woods. I'll tell you, probably impossible. All right. I'm going to tell you a quick story here. I wanted to do an Easter egg. I'm big into Easter eggs because you'll find out why in a second. But I wanted to do an Easter egg for Jack Nicklaus 5. We were racking our head how we could do it. The way we wanted to do it was have a perfect golfer. See, the way that you do a golf game is the computer golfer hits 1,000,000 shots. And then the computer decides which one's the best. He misses 1,000,000 shots that fast. Then the computer decides which one is best. All right? And then depending upon the level you want the player to play, you kind of back down, or you kind of back it down. So we had the single best shot for every single hole. Birdie or better, eagle, on every single hole. We had that shot. And I wanted to make a golfer that would do that, okay? So what we did was, we couldn't do Tiger Woods because it's Jack Nicklaus. He would beat Jack Nicklaus. We couldn't have Tiger Woods beating Jack Nicklaus. So it had to be somebody that Jack Nicklaus wouldn't mind. When we went to meet with Jack to show him the product, he was 2 hours late, but his wife Barbara was an absolute doll. I mean, just the most wonderful hostess you ever saw. She was phenomenal with us for that 2 hours. So I went back to the guys and I said, I know who our best golfer is going to be. It's going to be Barbara Nicklaus. so that's what we did. So if you put in all the right characteristics, then you got Barbara Nicklaus and you shot a perfect game of golf. That was the way it worked. Well, you didn't shoot it. The computer golfer shot it. Yeah, that's a short little joke. So any questions up to there? Nope. Just going okay so far?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right, so let me tell you what really happened to Atari. First of all, I want to tell you why I think I know what happened to Atari. First of all, I was the Atari's Director of Training and Development, and I was the Director of Training and Development for every single department at Atari. The one department I had trouble with this gives you an idea. Atari had great middle management. Their top management were clueless idiots. Okay? Absolutely clueless idiots. I'm talking about the top people. They were clueless idiots. Ray Kassar and Art Bellum were the two. Art Gemmell were the two that I'm talking about. But I went to see the VP of manufacturing, who was outstanding, great guy. And I said, you're not letting us do your training. You got to let us do your training. He says, why should we do any training here at all, for crying out loud? I sent him to orientation, that should be good enough. I said, it's not good enough, we can help you out. We can make things better for you. He said, we don't even have a mission statement in this goddamn company. You don't mind if I swear, is that okay? Yeah. We don't even have a mission statement in this goddamn company. What do you think's gonna, what do we need to do all this crap for? And I said, look, we can help you out. He says, I'll tell you what. You go home tonight and you write a mission statement. I'll take it to the board tomorrow. If they pass it and make that the mission statement, you can do all my training. So I went home that night, I wrote a mission statement, took it to the board, they passed it, and from then on we did all the training for manufacturing. But that gives you an idea. Here I am, the Director of Training Development. I write a mission statement, the board passes in 10 minutes. That's kind of where they came from. Well, it was pretty good. So anyhow, I also spent 20 years in retailing, which is critical. The retail buyer, store manager, and retail buyer and merchandise manager. And that's critical information for you to understand. And then I did critical research at Activision because I was in charge of sales training. And we weren't selling product all of a sudden. We weren't selling product. So I was told, go find out why we're not selling product. I said, all right, I'll go find out. So I got one of the sales guys. He said, take a trip with me. I'll show you why we're not selling product. So he took a trip with him. We walked into, remember initially they were in video stores? The games were in video stores. So we walked in video stores all over Southern California. And there were cartons, every single store, cartons of Raiders and mega cartons of E.T. Completely jammed. Every single store we went into. He says, they're not buying. He says, they don't have any open to buy. How many of you know what open to buy is? Who doesn't know what open to buy is? Okay, what open to, if you're a retailer, all right, you have so much money to spend. The only way you have money to spend next year is to sell what you bought this year. And in retailing, if you don't sell what you bought this year, you don't have any money next year. Period. That's called open to buy, all right? They didn't have any open to buy. They were jammed with E.T. and Raiders. Okay? Now, Atari dictated. You know, most products when you sell, how many do you want to buy? Atari said, you're buying 10 dozen. You're buying 20 dozen. They had no choice. Atari dictated how many products they could buy. They had about 250,000. Retail had about 250,000 Raiders still left. Raiders had sold pretty well. E.T., of course, was the worst video game ever produced by a major company. Everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
The worst. And the retailing, sales and marketing wanted to make $2 million. All right, put $1 million into the stores. They wanted to make $2 million. $1 million for backstop. Ray Kassar said, we're making $4 million. So they made $4 million. Well, they were able to put $1 million into stores, but they didn't. I think they put $2 million into stores. They put $2 million into stores. They sold $1 million through, so the stores had $1 million ETs left, and 250,000 Raiders left, but they couldn't move. No open to buy. Bottom fell out of the market. That was the death, and it was stupid. It was absolutely stupid, because Atari had a policy they would never take a single product back. And so they refused to take back a single product. They left that 1.25 million copies of E.T. and Raiders on the shelves and refused to take them back. If they had taken that product back and opened up the open to buy, the industry would not have crashed. I can't tell you how many people came to me and would say, you're at Activision? Why don't we see any product? I'm looking for product. Why don't we see any product? And that's the reason. So again, it was fixable, and it was major management issue, and it had nothing to do with middle management. It had only to do with these top idiots that thought they knew. You know, Ray Kassar came from the rug industry. You know that. That's where Warner picked him out of the rug industry. He was a rug salesman before that. Anyhow, I'm a little passionate about that because I didn't get my bonus. Activision promised me a bonus. then the bottom fell out. No bonus. All right, I do need that water. You were saving it for me.
There you go.
So that's my story of what happened to Atari and what happened to the industry. I told you,
Makes sense.
I have all the experience to be able to make that judgment. All right. Okay. So David Crane. So anyhow, so I got to be producer, right? You're producer, Brad. Okay. So what am I going to do first? Well, we want you to do the Pitfall 2 for the C64 and the 800. My first product as a producer. All right. So I go talk to the guys, Mike Lorenzen and Tim Schotter. So I go talk to those guys. I said, okay, I'm your producer. We're going to do the versions for the C64 and the Atari 800. I said, how are we going to do this? What do you think you want to do? Now, I think those of you who were here yesterday, I don't know anything about computers. I never had a computer class, okay? You know, my power, actually, my power and ability to lead within the computer industry comes from the fact that I don't have any computer background. Because one of the best things that a leader does is convince the people that they're needed, that they're important. And when you don't have any computer background, it's a hell of a lot easier. So that's how, so anyway, I said, so what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So Tim says, oh, I'm going to make great graphics. The C64 has this phenomenal graphics engine, and I can't wait to get to it and make fantastic graphics. I said, how about you, Mike? He said, I can't make good graphics. He said, the same graphics chip is in the 800 and the 400 that was in the 2600. I can't do anything about it. So what are you going to do? He says, I'm going to create another game. And when they finish the first game, they'll go into the second game. And I said, sounds great. That's fantastic. So they were talking about the 6 weeks here, you know. I think it was a little bit longer. I think it might have been 8 weeks, maybe 10. Created a game that was better than Pitfall 2. Was better than the one that David Crane did. Phenomenal game. If you remember Pitfall 2, you know how the guy got stuck? He couldn't get up on the surface? In the new game, you ran into an Indian snake charmer, and you climbed the snake in the rope, and you went up on the surface and waited for the helicopter to come pick you up. And it was fantastic. But also yesterday, how many of you were here yesterday? So yesterday, I mean, they were talking about almost killing. Who asked the question about killing? Maybe he's not here. But we almost killed Mike Lorenzen. You were talking about working 16 hours a day. He worked 18 to 20 hours a day for 8 weeks. He brought a sleeping bag in and slept on the floor. One time we had to call an ambulance. I made a decision. I would never allow anybody to do that again. And I'm talking allow. I didn't force him. I didn't ask him. They can still do it. But I would never allow anybody to work that kind of time ever again. So he gets all done, right? So marketing says, what do you got to tell us about the versions? I'm coming over now. I get over to marketing and I say, all right, here's what we got. Fantastic graphics on the C64 and this wonderful game on the 800. What? What did you say? I said a wonderful game on the 800. Can't be there, can't be there. What do you mean? We're advertising them together. They have to have the same gameplay. We can't have different gameplay for the two different games. You've got to rip it out. I gotta sit down. I'm driving back in my car. I don't remember how long it was. 8, 10, 12 weeks, 20-hour days. We gotta rip it out. So I go to Mike. I say, Mike, I got good news and bad news. What do you want first?
Bad news.
That's exactly what he said. Bad news was what he wanted first. I said we have to take the extra game out. Marketing can't handle it. Oh God! What's the good news? We're gonna have the best, excuse the language, fucking Easter egg that anybody ever had. So if you finish the game correctly, you get all of the treasures in the exact right order, and you end up in that top cavern an escalator takes you into a brand new game that has 340 levels that are all different, and then put you up on the surface with your treasures waiting for the helicopter. So every once in a while, I get a call from customer service. Brad, yeah? We got a C64 customers calling us. And he tells us that his neighbor's got an 800 and he's got another game. Well, do you know what's going on? Oh, it's confusion. You know, the C64 graphics are so much better than the 800 graphics that people just get confused. So anyhow, that's the story of the biggest Easter egg in computer game history.
So he planned that from the beginning, huh? I've heard that story before, but the way I heard it told before, it wasn't pre-planned.
Oh, the game was pre-planned. Making an Easter egg was not pre-planned.
Yeah, the extra level pre-planned. The way I heard it, it wasn't. So
You're right. No, it was pre-planned. Yeah, we pre-planned it from the beginning. Yeah. But we hoped it would be able to be in the game normally.
it makes sense, because that's an awfully elaborate level for something.
Have you played the extra level?
Yeah.
It isn't. I'm not lying about how elaborate it is, am I?
No, not at all. No, I heard about it in junior high. A friend told me that there was a hidden level. So I'm playing 2600 version for months, trying to find it.
Oh,
Never could find it.
you're right. You won't find another 2600 either. All right. So anyhow, so I was the producer, but nobody in the industry had ever gotten producer credit on a package. So this is a little bit of a story about Ghostbusters that wasn't told yesterday. I used to know. So what happened was, and I kind of like the legend better. The legend was we didn't think to do Ghostbusters until we went to the movie, if you know that. David, of course, said that they'd already kind of planned it, and he had half of it kind of finished for another game, and then he would turn that into Ghostbusters. So he got half of it done. He was going to do the second half, and he got the design completely finished. They got well into it, and he had a programming assistant, a young guy by the name of Adam Bellin, who did Murder on the Mississippi and a few other great products, and I think he's still around someplace in the industry. Anyhow, David comes to me one day and he says, Brad, I have to leave for a month, but Adam's doing a good job and I don't think it'll be a problem. I said, no problem. I'm sure we can handle it, David. So he went away for a month. He went to Hawaii for a month. And of course, you know, throughout that process, that month, Murphy raised its ugly head and we would run into issues, but they were producer issues. They weren't programming issues, they were producer issues. So I solved all those issues. When David came back, the product was done. And he talked around, he found out the reason it was done was because I had saved the day a number of times. I was like, I loved it when Steve gave me credit for the name Hacker and the theme behind that. But that's, you know, that's kind of the team we had, was we gave credit, you know, where credit was due. And so David said to the manufacturing, I want Brad's name on the package as producer. Anyhow, when administration of the department got wind of that, they said no. They said, Brad's too new. We've had other guys around longer. We really can't have him on the package. Now, they'd already done the packaging with my name on it. And so they had to redo the packaging and strip my name off. So it was so close to being the first producer with the package credit. It was good. But however, I ended up being the first producer with package credit because the next product was Aliens. And in Aliens, we did a movie-style poster for the cover. And down at the bottom of the movie, in the movie-style poster, it says, presents a Brad Frager production. So I ended up getting my name there as the first. I think that's the first time that anybody got producer credit on a package, if I'm not mistaken. I know it was at Activision, and I don't think anybody else ever did it before that. So that's that story. Are we still okay?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. Shanghai was an interesting story. How much time have I got?
Yeah, 15 minutes.
15 minutes? I got a call from a woman, a friend of mine. She says, there's a guy I want you to meet, named Brody Lockhart. And I said, great, I'll give him a call. So I gave Brody a call. I said, Susan said we ought to meet. Brody said, great. So when do you want to meet? I said, how about breakfast tomorrow morning? Brody said, fine. So anyhow, next afternoon I get a call from Brody. Where were you? I forgot the breakfast. The first time ever, I didn't forget that. I forgot the breakfast. He said, oh, I forgot, Brody. says, it's a problem for me. I got a wheelchair. He says, it's really inconvenient for me to show up and have the person not show. So I talked him into letting me come over. He was at Stanford University. Talked him and let him to come over. So I went over to Stanford. There's Brody in his wheelchair. He's quadriplegic. He can't move nothing below his neck, and he actually has to have help breathing. Full quadriplegia. I found out later that he was a gymnast, and fell off the trampoline and broke his neck. And that's at Stanford University. So anyhow, we talked about educational software because that was what the conversation was. Decided there wasn't any way we could work together, and as I'm leaving, I say the same thing I always say to people. If you ever come up with a game idea, call me first. All right? So anyhow, I get a phone call from Brody, middle of, I think it was 1st of December probably. And Brody says, I got a game I want you to take a look at. I said, great, I'd love to. He said, when can you get over here? And I looked at my calendar. Now, 1st of December, what do you do getting ready for when you're in the computer games industry? The Consumer Electronics Show in Chicago. Is it Chicago? I think Chicago. No, maybe it's probably Las Vegas. Probably Las Vegas, right? Yeah. So I look at my calendar. I got no time. And I said to him, the only time I got is Christmas Eve morning. He says, come by Christmas Eve morning. So anyhow, I went by his house Christmas Eve morning, and he showed me this. He had these mahjong tiles set up on the table in the shape of a turtle. And he says, people love to play this game, but it's so difficult to set up. You have to stack the tiles. It's just really difficult to set up. He said, so I put it up on the computer. And he said, I'll show you. So he showed me this beautiful game. The artwork was terrific. We're talking '83, and he worked on a Macintosh. The artwork was just absolutely beautiful, and the game was wonderful. And I looked at it, and I said, this is terrific. And I said, can I take a copy, have a couple people look at it? Well, I don't know. I said, Brody, I promise I'll protect it. He says, okay, I want you to sign non-disclosure. So he says, Mom, will you help me out? So his mother brings him over and gives him a stick and puts it in his mouth. And he types that non-disclosure on his mat like this. No, nothing here. This was too early. Stick. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that he programmed that entire game and did all that graphics with that stick in his mouth. So every time I thought about it, I think I got tough times. So anyhow, I took it home. And the first thing I did was gave it to my former wife. I gave it to my former wife. Her name's Kathy. I gave it to Kathy, and I said to her, why don't you play this game? I don't like computer games. No, just try this game out. She said, okay, I'll try it out. So anyhow, I set up the back, and she starts playing the game. And I get ready to go to bed. I'm going to bed now. And she said, I'll be in a second. Go to bed. Look at the clock. Wake up at 5 a.m. Call out, Kathy. She says, just one more game. So I took it into to work, and I gave it to my buddy, Sam Nelson. Anybody know the name Sam Nelson? He was a great producer for EA, one of the top producers for EA ultimately. But he worked with Activision. We took it to Sam. I said, take this home. See what you and, what's her name? Sam's wife, you don't remember? Oh, well, I can't remember either. Well, anyhow, see what your wife thinks about it. You and your wife think about it. So anyhow, Monday morning, that's over the weekend. Monday morning, he comes in, he says, can I borrow your Mac? I said, borrow my Mac? Why, what's up? He says, she won't let me bring my computer in. She wants to play that damn game. And I said, we got a winner here. That was it. So we knew we had a winner. I wanted to call it an addiction because it was during that time that everybody was talking about how terrible computer games are. They were addicting. And it'd be great to go right up against them and call it an addiction, right? But the marketing department is much smarter than I am. And Shanghai was such a better name. But I will say that they did put in the advertising that it's addicting. So they did that. And of course it wasn't, it just exploded. And it was the first game that everybody liked. Kids, but boys, women, everybody. That was the first game that everybody really cared for. So anyhow, I also negotiated the very best deal I could without realizing that Brody didn't know it was the very best deal I could, and he wanted a better deal. I learned after that, don't ever negotiate the best deal you can negotiate. So Ken Coleman had to come and kind of smooth it over in order for us to get it. But Shanghai, I'm sure, is the longest selling computer game in history. I don't think anybody touches it. It's still around. and still sold by Activision. The birth of computer card solitaire, how many time have I got?
You got about 9 minutes.
About 9 minutes. Computer card solitaire was really interesting. My mother was hooked on Shanghai. My mother could not quit playing Shanghai. And they would visit us over Christmas. My dad loved poker, so he would want us to sit down and play poker all the time. So one night he says, "We're going to play poker tonight." And I said, "Yeah." "Well, what are we going to play?" "Oh, Mom's playing Shanghai. She'll be done." "Oh, she always plays that game. She ain't never going to be ready." And I said, "Come on, just she'll get here." And he looks at me. "I will never be addicted to a computer game." And all night long, what computer game could I addict my dad to? And I knew he loved cards, so I said, "I know, solitaire. I'll put solitaire on the computer and that'll do it," okay? And at the time, my aunt would play solitaire every single morning. She would play 9 games. And the 9 games she would play, she would keep a cumulative score and then see how good she could do cumulative every time. And it was a little bit of a fraud because she cheated, but when you cheat in solitaire, that's kind of interesting. But anyhow, so I put those 9 games in. It was called Aunt Anne's game. I put those 9 games in because that was my Aunt Anne's game, and went out, and I'm still getting calls from people telling me, "Where can I get Solitaire Royale? Where can I get Solitaire Royale?" Because we lost Aunt Anne's game after that, and it's Aunt Anne's game that turned out to be the thing that grabbed people, that really grabbed them. All right, so anyhow, the next Christmas, I guess the rest of the story is, next Christmas they had to bring 2 computers. My dad was addicted to computer solitaire. That felt real good. Anyhow, okay, this is my last story. I think I'll get it done. What happened was I was working with Doug Carlson at Broderbund. I was trying to sell him product. Broderbund was the worst company in the world to try to sell products to. Absolutely impossible to sell products to. They would say, "I want to hear your idea." You tell them. "Oh, I got to see a write-up." You tell them. "Oh, I got to see a text script." You tell them. "Well, I have to see first playable." I mean, they want you to do the whole damn product before they would license it to you. They're just really terrible in that regard. That's how SimCity ended up being their own company. That's what they did with SimCity, and they just put it out on their own. So that it worked out really well for them. So anyhow, Doug calls me in, and I'm talking about 2 or 3 different products I want to do for Broderbund. And he says, "I'm not quite ready. You can show me a couple scenarios if you want to, but I'm not quite ready. But I got this game I want you to look at. I got from Russia." He says, I don't know what's so good about it, but I can't quit my programmers from playing it. And I said, "Well, give it to me and I'll take it home and give you an evaluation." So anyhow, he gave me the product. I took it home. I played it for about a day. And of course, it reminded me of Shanghai. Once you started, you could not quit playing. It just trapped you. I mean, you couldn't quit playing. So I called Doug up. I said, "License this product." I said, "License it right now. Don't wait for anybody. License this product. This is going to be one of the biggest games in history. I am telling you. I have no doubt." He said, "Well," he said, I'll think about it. So in the meantime, I went to see Gilman Louie. Gilman Louie became the president or the CEO of Spectrum Holobyte. And he had a game called, do I have it up there? Nexus. Yeah, he had a little company called Nexus that we'd gotten off of the ground. We allowed him to do Portal. And he was working out of his mother's home. He had programmers in every room in his mother's home. And so we gave him the contract for Portal, and that's what got him off of the ground. So we became good friends. So I went to Nexus. They were in downtown San Francisco. Went to Nexus, and I said to Gilman, "There's a little game out called Tetris from Russia." I said, "If you get a chance, you want to license this product. It's going to be world famous. It's going to be a phenomenal product. You want to license this product." And Gilman said, "Well, take a look at it. We'll take a look at it." So anyhow, he got a copy of Tetris, and I didn't hear anything more. So then we went to the Computer Electronics Show, and I run into Doug Carlson. I said, "Doug, did you license Tetris?" He said, "No, I haven't done it yet." "Doug, you have to license Tetris." He says, "I do?" "Yes, you have to license Tetris." He said, "Well, let's go. I'll license it right now." So we walked to go to license it. We turn around the corner, and there's Gilman Louie. "Brad, guess what? I just licensed Tetris." So anyhow, so they had Tetris. So then he invited me in as a consultant producer to try to help decide what to name the product. So I wanted to name it Mosaic Madness. That was my name for the product, Mosaic Madness. So I went through the whole design. We talked about all of that and everything. A couple of days later, he shows me. He says, I don't think we're going to do Mosaic Madness. He says, I really like the idea of Russia. I think we're going to stick with the Russian theme. I said, well, it's your product. And boy, was that the right decision to stay with the right name. So that's the true story of, that's the inside story of how Tetris got licensed in America.
Now who did Gilman get it from? Who did he license it?
He licensed, that's kind of, what did I do with my clicker? Oh, he licensed it, I want to tell that story, Barbara. He licensed it from this guy that thought he had the license. I forget the guy's name,
Germany
little guy.
England?
He was from England. And he thought he had the worldwide rights for Tetris in all systems. It turned out he only had limited rights for the United States. And that's who Gilman licensed it to, and that's how come Gilman was able to keep it.
Nintendo came in and found.
But then Nintendo came in and all kinds of crap happened. All kinds of stuff happened. And that guy committed suicide. The guy that did the original licensing. There was so much problems around that he ended up committing suicide. But Gilman was safe. He was safe. He licensed the right one. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When the Tramiels came in and then the ST line started, you were still there?
I was at Activision.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah, I was at Activision, right. Yeah, I only knew the people, that I knew there at the time. But their crash happened. They're still the fastest growing company in the history of the world as far as adding employees. Other companies now have grown faster revenue-wise, but that's because software allows you to have so much revenue with very few employees. And so revenue-wise, companies have beat them, but nobody's touched them when it comes to employees. I started with Atari in late 1979. I was there for 18 months. I tell people I was in Atari for 5 years from the beginning of 80 to the halfway through 81. Felt like 5 years, and I'll tell you, we did 5 years worth of work in that time. But during that time, the company grew from 3,500 employees to 18,000 in that short length of time. I don't think anybody's even touched that. And our corporate training did orientations for everyone. Any other questions? Yeah.
On the Atari 800 football team, is the only way to access the other levels is to find every piece of treasure?
You have to find every treasure in the proper order.
Oh.
And then when you end up in the top column, top deal, then you get the escalate. But you got to find every treasure in the proper order. It's not a weird order. It's the natural flow. It's the natural flow order, right? It's not a weird order. It's the natural flow order.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Hope you enjoyed it.